Christian coaches, and it's designed to help you optimize your business model, your pricing, and your sales strategies so you can scale your income and scale your impact. For me as a new Christian coach, I wasn't sure if I had what it took to have success, and God opened the door to much more success than I could have imagined. I did over $250,000 in revenue in my first year, and a big part of it was because I knew how to sell. And that's what this podcast is about. Since then, I've been hired by great coaches, 7- and 8-figure coaches in the industry, to do sales directly for them, to bring my team to their events. We've done sales for Pete Vargas, Pedro Adao, Ray Edwards, Jon Acuff, Dr. Darius Daniels, Jennifer Allwood, Dan Miller, Jon Acuff, so many more amazing people. Nick and Megan Unsworth recently, Billy Sticker, good friends of mine. And we are excited to share some of the ideas that we use with them with you so that you can sell in a high integrity way. And today, the episode is specifically about how to have integrity when you're facing adversity in business. And when it matters, how it matters, and how to show up in a way that honors your brand and who you are and who God created you to be. And what I know is when I show up in integrity in business, especially when things aren't going well, or when the other side of the relationship isn't fully in integrity, that great things come out of that. For me, my experience has always been that God will reward the efforts I put forward if the efforts I put forward are really honest and really good. And so I think of an example recently. In late 2023, November, December, we did sales for an entrepreneur. I'm not going to name him here, but he hired us to do sales for him at an event. We brought a 5-person sales team, and I was referred to him. It was my first time working with this gentleman, and we had a challenging experience. There was a lot of adversity in the experience. We prepared to sell for him, and we had a contract in place that was signed with a certain compensation model. And the day before the event, he contacted me suggesting that he was surprised by the compensation we were expecting, even though he'd signed the contract. And we had this back and forth conversation that was a little bit frustrating and challenging, to be honest. And I was clear on what we had agreed upon and what I thought was fair. But ultimately, we made a little bit of a compromise. We made a little bit of a sacrifice. And I wanted to make sure that my team was getting paid what we had agreed to compensate them for the event based on the guarantee that we were given and the commission model we were given and that we signed. But then, I compromised a little bit of what my earnings were going to be, what Faith2Influence's earnings were going to be, to make it right and to move forward in this situation. And I was clear that I didn't like it. I didn't think it was fair. I didn't think it was the most appropriate way to move forward, but I was willing to make this sacrifice, and that I was still going to give my very best effort, and that we were going to honor the agreement. And so that's what we came to ultimately. And it wasn't a massive change from the original agreement, but it was a small change. And then we showed up the next day for the event, and we were expecting a couple hundred people at the event, and there were 30 prospects at this virtual conference rather than a couple of hundred. And the 30 prospects weren't very qualified. So the situation that we walked into was not nearly as good as we expected. The compensation model was being changed in a way that was unfavorable to us the day before. And we had decisions to make. How are we going to show up in this partnership sales opportunity? And I talked with the team, and we all agreed that we were going to show up and give our very best. We were going to honor our part of the agreement. We were going to be all in on serving this client and serving all of their clients in the virtual event. And we did just that. And we got a great result considering what the opportunity was that was placed in front of us. And we did good work, and we did honorable work. And we showed up with integrity, even though the circumstances were not what we were hoping for. What ended up happening after that is a month later, this man who we did that work for referred me to a really ideal client. And this ideal client has had 3 separate contracts with Faith2Influence now and paid us over $20,000 in 6 months. A really perfect opportunity. Even bigger than that is this ideal client introduced us to another even more ideal client. I would say a whale of a partnership sales client for us, where we did over $1 million in sales in 3 days, and our company's going to get paid over $100,000 in income from that event. The single greatest event in company history for Faith2Influence. Provided opportunity for 8 different sales reps and built our relationship, built our brand, created a tremendous amount of income. So over $120,000 in income has come from this initial event that only, by the way, was agreed to pay us $5,000 guaranteed, ended up paying us $4,000 guaranteed, but it led to $120,000 in income after that event from introductions that ultimately came about because of the integrity we showed, the class that we showed, the way that we absolutely gave it our very best over the course of those 3 days to make the best of a challenging situation. And I tell you this story because I know we all face situations like this. Sometimes they're just like what I described, where the other side of the agreement isn't really honoring their side of things. Or maybe we got into a situation in business that we thought was going to be one thing and ended up being another. When we can still do our best and end the relationship there or transition the relationship with integrity and with honor, then it opens the door to future referrals, future opportunities, and you never know what's going to come from it. I would have never imagined after that event where we earned $4,000. We brought a team of like 6, by the way. We weren't running away with a lot in our pockets for the time that we put in. I would have never expected that would have led to all of what's come after that. And all of that's still to come, because these are 2 clients that we might work with again. I assume we will. And being able to have the experience of working with them probably opens doors to working with others. And so there's just a lot of goodness that came from that challenging situation. I was counseling a friend and client recently who thought he was in an agreement with someone that was essentially a trade of services, this for that, instead of a compensated agreement. And someone was doing some work for him, and he thought that it was going to be just straight, like nobody owed anybody anything. And the other side of that agreement was expecting to be paid without ever having communicated that. And so there was a difficult, challenging conversation to be had to get on the same page and figure this out. And I told him what I'm going to tell you, which is in situations like that, I want to find win-win as much as it's possible to do so. I want to honor the other person, especially when money's involved and expectations weren't the same. I want to do what I can to make sure that person feels like they're being treated fairly. That person feels like they're being honored and treated with integrity. And I also want to stand for my side of the agreement and what I thought was fair. And so I want to, in those conversations, be loving and open while being firm and honoring of the truth. But oftentimes, if it isn't going to be a compromise where we both can agree on what's fair, I will bend to the other side a little bit. Now, I might decide I'm not going to work with this person ever again if I don't feel like I'm being treated fairly, but I will give a little bit, especially when money's involved. I want to honor the other side of the agreement because I know how much that can affect reputation, and I want to do what's right. And Jesus and the Bible talk about giving the shirt off your back, the only shirt that you have. And I'm willing to do that. I'm willing to forgive any debts that are owed to me. And I've always shown up that way. I shouldn't say always. I think I've had a couple of times early on in Faith2Influence's history where I didn't show up with ultimate integrity, where I didn't honor the other person, where I stood my ground a little too firmly, where I stood for what was fair more than what the other person needed. And I'm not saying that I want to be a pushover. I want to be clear about that. We don't want to be taken advantage of. We don't want to be in you win, I lose arrangements in business. And if somebody's trying to create that with you, like that's the last time you work with them. But if you work with them honorably and fulfill your side of an agreement at all times, it's going to lead to more business. It's going to lead to a valued reputation. It's going to lead to opportunity. And it's something that you can lay your head down on the pillow at night over and feel good about. And so that's my reminder to all of us. Can we be honorable and have integrity even when we're facing adversity, even when our clients aren't following through on their side of the agreement or the contract, even when people treat us a little bit unfairly? Can we find a way forward with total integrity so that we can feel good about the way we've shown up and so we can open the door to future opportunity? This is my challenge to you, my invitation to you. I hope you'll take me up on it. God bless you. Let's change the way people feel about business. Let's change the way people feel about sales. Let's operate differently because we're Christians, because of our integrity and our honor and our values and the things that Jesus has done for us, so that people have a different experience with us than they would with others. If this is interesting to you, by the way, Feel free to check out more of our content. We've got some free things available to you at goodsalespdf.com. And we teach some of our high integrity business design strategies and sales strategies in our $7 4-day challenge, which you can find at salesisgood.com. God bless you all and talk to you next week. Cheers.